something ringing as a bell. All the searching in your heart, something in the swell. Wonder if it ever will mean something to tell. I know what you need, someone just to know all the things we seem to be going through. I know what you need, just someone to know all the things that you hold in secret. Oh, we still like to dream and such, nothing came without. I still look to graceful things, painting for our living. I see best in you, don't dare walk away. We'll as yet pull it through, make our own day. I know what you need, someone just to know all the things you still want to touch in the world. I know what you need, just someone to know all the things that you're going through. Someone just to know all the things you still want to touch in the world. I know what you need, just someone to know all the things you still love in secret. Oh,
and that was the great new single by The Great Order called Someone to Know. And what you want to know right now is what's going on with the after party. And this is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Your hosts are The Great Order and No White Guilt. Now, the crown winner of last week goes to the one and only Slots, financially gifting 50, you heard that right, 50 white babies saving dollars. Congratulations and a big thank to you, our dear brother, for all that you're doing and advocating for white well-being, helping people to go free on the front lines every day, and then financially gifting as well. And second place was the one and the only Sismic, financially gifting $25. I thank you so much as well, my dear brother. And congratulations to you. If you would like to financially gift over the course of the program today, you can do so on Entropy at 15% cost to you. And you can find the link in the description below. It is Entropy with no white guilt. Entropy with no white guilt. You can also financially gift on Cash App. You can find the link for that down in the description as well. As always, you all know this. You could say it with me. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the After Party. Now, today we have the one and only, your absolute favorite, a beloved individual, the James Edwards, the big host of the Political Cesspool. James, I'm going to introduce you here, I guess, just for a couple more words about who you are and who you are to me, and then I'll pass it over to you to tell the folks who may not know you what you do and where they can find you. But I definitely want to first say to my dear brother here, a big congratulations to you and your wonderful wife on the third baby Edwards, Caroline, I believe the beautiful name was. And we are so happy that she has come into the world and so happy that the family is doing wonderfully. I love the entire family. And if you don't know who James Edwards is, you will want to know after this conversation, because he is an amazing leader, a content producer, a thought leader, has been in the white positive sphere a very long time, very many years, and a great friend of mine, a servant. And not only that, but the person who has been among the most defamed and persecuted, prosecuted in our ranks, and has handled it better than anyone has ever handled it. In fact, his entire family, his lovely wife has handled, his children have handled it better than everyone else has handled any sort of oppression or repression or persecution by the anti-white regime. So follow closely, listen closely to what this wonderful hero of ours has to say over the course of this hour, ladies and gentlemen, because you're going to see a love and a spirit and a nobility that enables you, as he and his family, to move through these treacherous waters of anti-whiteism with a smile on your face and purpose in your step. Ladies and gentlemen, he will tell you more about himself right now. This is the one and only Mr. James Edwards. Hello to you, good brother. Welcome to the show.
Jason, it's always great to be back with you. Thank you so much for the kind words. Of course, you and I go back many, many years as friends and as colleagues and as comrades. And it's certainly great to be on with the true Renaissance man in your rank. George, I'm looking forward to getting tickets when the tour comes to Tennessee. So keep me posted on that.
Indeed. Mr. George, welcome, brother.
How are you? James, thank you. I'll get on camera here in a second. But yeah, it's nice to speak to you. And we're a little freeform tonight. You've been on tap a few times, as some people might know. You can always check our websites to hear and see the times James has been on prior. But we have a few things going on in the world. So what's on your mind these days, James?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm doing well by doing good, I guess you could say. A little fatigued. If it doesn't show in my face, I can assure you that I am, as Jason so kindly mentioned. And thank you again, Jason, for the overly kind opening remarks. But yes, we did have our third child. I did all the hard work, of course, but that was back in October. So baby Caroline is almost 2 months old. She'll be 2 months old in 3 more days. And I can tell you that there is a difference in having a newborn when you're 30, which was the age I was when we had our first, and having one when you're 40, which I just turned earlier this summer. But as I've always said, when it comes to raising kids, especially at this stage in their development, the days are long, but the years are short. So it's obviously a blessing. I mean, this is something that we talk about, going out and not only serving as a positive force for our community through our work, whether it be here on the live stream or my work on the radio, or however we apply ourselves as activists and as advocates for our cause, but to also do it within the walls of a home as well. And it's wonderful when you're able to do both. And I've been given that blessing, and I try to, embrace it to the best of my ability. None of us are perfect. I'm sure I can be better in some aspects of all of this, but that's what we've been doing this year. So that's been part of it. It's been a hell of a year, has it not? I mean, 2020, we won't soon forget this one with the election and the whole COVID phenomenon and everything else. I saw where Roosh had tweeted out something that I hope doesn't become prophetic, but it just was a pretty simple tweet. 2021 will be worse. So we'll see if it could possibly be. But guys, how are y'all doing as we get started? Like you said, this is our, I don't know, we've made a handful of these. I mean, Jason's a regular on TPC. I know I've made a few appearances on these, so they're just real comfortable and cozy. This is tea in the red solo cup here. So, no, we're just going to get comfortable tonight. What are we talking about?
Well, we kind of wanted your take on 2020, since you mentioned 2020. What's been going on, and especially everyone's talking about all these speculations regarding the election, our contested election here in the United States. By the way, chat, tell us if all of our audio levels are even, please. But yeah, James, it's basically an open forum on that kind of thing. We just wanted to get some of your thoughts on this. We know we were all at different times on the Red Ice special a couple of days after the election last month.
Oh, yeah.
And it hasn't gotten any clearer since then. And we know that you're a good guy. You do your weekly radio show Saturday nights, and you're a good guy to check in with about something like this. So we definitely wanted to get you on, get your take on everything.
Well, obviously, I mean, Trump still appears to be battling this. I say appears. Without question, I want him to somehow pull a rabbit out of the hat and throw the Hail Mary and connect on all of this. That's where my heart is. My head says, I mean, you at least have to open yourself up to the possibility that he is using this opportunity. And this wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing if he was doing this, but that he is using this as an opportunity to retire some campaign debt and harvest some emails for future endeavors. And if he is, and if that's all that it is, then I don't take issue with him for that. At all. I think no matter what happens, and I'm not, as he is not, I'm not conceding this thing yet. I mean, things happen. I mean, things happen throughout the history of the world. Only America, where you have this two-party duopoly, do you have such so-called peaceful transitions of power year after year after year. Of course, because everybody plays on the same team, Trump has been something of an outlier with regard to all of that. But going forward with what may happen with the election. Let me just say, if he does have this evidence that it was a fraudulent election, as he claims to have, he cannot leave. He absolutely must refuse no matter what. If he truly knows, and it's not just a hunch or it's not just a pretty good guess, or it certainly appears this way, but if he knows beyond any shadow of a doubt that the American system, which we long since should have abjured. But if he knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that the system is so criminally corrupt that they are, in fact, rigging presidential elections, he can't leave. And I don't know what that entails, if it entails some sort of a coup d'etat, Jason, as you've put it, where you have to call up the military. But that's what you have to do if he has the smoking gun. Now, of course, he's being routed out of court after court after court. I had, of course, as we may have mentioned on one of these previous appearances here on tap, a libel case in a court. So I can tell you that the courts are, of course, as criminally corrupt as any other American institution. You're not going to go into a court and just because you walk into the hallowed halls of a courthouse that all of a sudden truth and justice prevail there. I mean, the courts are just as corrupt as the government, as the media, as the churches, and as all of the other institutions, business, corporate America, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So I'm not surprised to this point that Trump has been defeated in case after case. Mm-hmm. I think, obviously his only hope was to get to the Supreme Court, which is like a stocked pond, a pond that he has stocked for the last 4 years to a large degree. He seems to think that it may be difficult even for him as the president of the United States to get some of these cases there. I think there is no doubt that there was fraud, widespread fraud, whether or not it was enough to overturn the election or whether or not it was enough to actually turn this and sway it to Biden, or if it was just your garden variety fraud that you're going to have in majority minority cities like Atlanta and Milwaukee and Detroit and some of these other places. Well, that remains to be seen because, of course, even we haven't seen all of the evidence. But needless to say, guys, I hope somehow, some way, Biden doesn't get in. If Biden does get in, the Republicans will revert back to form. They will go back to being the limp-wristed opposition that they've always been. They will continue to be defeated at every turn like they always have, without a strong man to whip them into line. And even with a guy like Trump, it's taken everything he's had to do anything with these sociopaths and people who look after themselves first and seek the path of least resistance on any given issue. Stonewall Jackson's theologian, his chaplain back in the war between the states, R.L. Dabney, has the definitive quote, and it still holds up today. It's twice as true today, in fact, as it was in the late 1800s when he spoke it. But he has the definitive take on what conservatism is, which is, of course, just, well, exactly what I said. I mean, they exist to lose. They don't try to win. They don't dare to win. and that's what we'll have with the Republicans, sans Trump, and having the Republicans win one of those races in Georgia, one of the runoff races, or even the fact that they have gained some seats in the House. That's going to do nothing. That's going to do nothing without a guy at the head of the table that will be able to marshal them to spark some form of resistance. They will revert back to form, and it's not going to be any good for us, obviously, on the issues that matter. Now, maybe they could, the best case scenario without Trump would be that there is a split government and you get more or less gridlock, and you don't get the most heinous things that the Democrats would like to do, like stacking the Supreme Court and, adding Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., and getting a couple extra senators there to where not only will you never be able to compete on the presidential level again, 2024, you'll never even be able to capture the Senate again come 2024 if they're able to get away with that. And it's not over yet. I don't find it likely that they'll win both Senate runoffs in Georgia. But, of course, anything's possible, particularly if we see the same kind of voting taking place in downtown Atlanta that we saw in November. So that's my take on it all with Trump. I sure would have liked to have seen more by now. It's not over yet. I mean, I think we just had some big news today, or at least a relatively big headline with, oh my gosh, I had it pulled up. Y'all might be able to fill me in on it. It had something to do with the Electoral College. Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani, by the way. I mean, these aren't just some guys Trump fished out of the loser's bin. They people that had reputations. Rudy Giuliani, I don't see them just becoming Trump's boy and going and doing this for him to great ridicule, especially in the case of the former mayor of New York, unless they thought that there was at least something there that could hold up. Of course, you can't rely on the media to give you your daily bread and to decipher all of this stuff for you. I mean, they're just making it out to be a joke, and it's just completely frivolous filings. But what was the issue today with the Electoral College? I think the headline was Trump seeks to. Well, it's the same old stuff they say every day, but there was a new twist to it today. I don't know exactly. You can look for it for a moment, and maybe I'll speak to what I know. I did a short video the other day about some misunderstanding that was in the regime's media, as well as the anti-white regime's media, as well as across YouTube, and that is how the Electoral College and the delegate system works. 3 states if governors of 3 states end up selecting Electoral College, a different Electoral College electors, then you end up with the state having no electors. The Congress of the United States government can determine that, because you then have, say, if you have 20 from Pennsylvania and you have the Republican state legislature sends 20 and their Democrat governor sends 20, then the government of the United States has a couple options. They can say, well, we'll take a slate from some of the Republican legislatures from Pennsylvania's pick, and we'll take some of the governors, or what is more likely the case, especially if 2 other states follow suit along with Pennsylvania in this vein, is the federal government of the United States will say none of the electors that were selected, and you'll go to a delegate system, which is each state gets 1 vote. And if it reverts to the delegate system, you all can do the math. You can see how many states Trump won and how many states Biden won. And it would come down to, I think, what is it? Trump won 7 or something states like this. So he would then end up being the winner of the presidency without actually having received any Electoral College votes. Well, okay, Jason, that's interesting. And then, of course, you also have this thing called Faithless Electors, where people can actually go up there and change some votes. And if you get it jammed up long enough, of course, it reverts to the state legislatures, and the Republicans hold the majority of the state houses in this country. So if you squint and you look just hard enough, you can find a way that if everything just fell into place perfectly, Trump could run this gauntlet and maneuver, and in theory, at least in theory, I'm not saying it's likely, but in theory, there's still a way, even with, of course, the media dismissing this. And Joe Biden, I mean, how ridiculous. Joe Biden I mean, this guy, I don't even think he can tie his shoes anymore. I saw him up making this Thanksgiving proclamation, and he's supposed to be this devout Catholic, and he didn't even know that the book of the Bible, Psalms, was pronounced Psalms with the P silent. He called it Palms, silent S. And you've got all that going on. But anyway, and then, of course, him, I mentioned this on the program last Saturday, he made up this whole thing, the office of the president-elect. I mean, that's not really a real thing. And I've never certainly seen an office where every time he goes to his office, he's got this theater-sized projection screen behind him that says, office of the president-elect. I mean, he really wants you to know that's what he considers himself to be. But no, here's what I had. Here's what I had that I saw today that I was grasping for a moment ago. Representative Mo Brooks, he's a senator out of Alabama, plans to challenge the Electoral College votes when Congress officially certifies Joe Biden's victory. Now, that's the headline from Politico. So that's interesting. We'll see, what, if anything, comes of that. And then above and beyond that, you had Lynn Wood, who, of course, is gained some fame for winning the case involving Nick Sandmann and the Washington Post. Lynn Wood is working on this Trump case along with Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani and in some capacity. Lynn Wood said today that Governor Kemp, Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, this is a very prominent attorney, Lynn Wood, saying that Governor Kemp took money from Dominion, that is, of course, the voting system, and he's not going to sue me for saying that because I know what he did and he knows what he did. He went on to say that I know about defamation. I've defended clients, and I'm here to tell you this. So he's saying he's calling the governor of Georgia that he was in on this and that he knew about it and he can prove it and that he won't be sued for defamation because all of this has come to light. Well, see, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, this is the stuff we've been hearing for several weeks now. Here we are now, exactly a month removed from the election, and the Kraken and all of this. I mean, it is time. At some point, they're going to have to show their cards. Yeah. But I'll tell you this: in the meantime, the one thing that I think has been best so far for us from all of this is the fact that as long as Trump continues to refuse to concede, it erodes faith in the system. We have got to have our people lose faith in the system, which is impossibly anti-white. This system hates the historic American majority. Our people have got to move on from believing that we can go in and have these wholesale changes come about from the electoral process. Even if Trump wins, this isn't going to be our long-term salvation because sooner or later Trump will be gone and we'll be still left with a huge mess. Now, that being said, I would like to buy whatever time I can. Trump is better than Biden. Yes, we could sit here for the remainder of the hour and talk about how Trump has disappointed us and how Trump didn't do this and how we wish Trump had done that. Or compare and contrast candidate Trump to the last 4 years of President Trump's output. But there's no doubt that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are much, much worse by every standard of measurement. So if you are reasonable, disappointments being what they are, you'd better hope that Trump can somehow, some way, by hook or crook, pull this out. So, but anyway, that's the latest. So you've got the situation with Mo Brooks going to contend the Electoral College if and when they certify, and I believe that's coming up in just a few days. You got Lynn Wood in Georgia, and then you have, of course, Trump today saying he's going to veto the National Annual Defense Funding Bill unless Section 230, which shields the big tech, is terminated. So there's still some time for him to do something. We have to be fair in our assessment. We have to give criticism when it's warranted, and we have to give praise and speak these simple truths about Trump being better than Biden in spite of the disappointments. For the most part, Trump's bark has been much more vicious than his bite. I hope for something big between now and January 20th, but I guess we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, you spoke to that the last time you were on a couple of months ago. If anyone's interested in that too, we got a little more into that candidate Trump versus President Trump. Someone, Jesse Link in the chat, is saying, I don't know if this is any consolation to either of you, but apparently the UK betting houses are favoring Trump right now, and they have been. And he's saying they wouldn't risk money like that if and their reputation if there wasn't some kind of assessment. Now, I don't know. I don't know how much you put stock into that, but there's just a little interesting tidbit I wanted to mention.
You know what? I'd like to see a link to that. I know that they were favoring him well into the night on election night, even after, that I saw that then. I didn't know that there was anybody still favoring him on December 2nd. I
was going to say the association I have with the UK betting house is the same thing that you do. I was watching it on election night, and I stayed up and I explained this story.
I was up at 3 a.m. Right.
You could feel the mood shift. It's like a call went out, and their plan wasn't working, so they shut it down. And all of a sudden, we stopped getting information. Everything was trending for Trump to win.
Yeah. And then, of course, Jared and Jason, that goes back to, of course, they stopped counting the votes. Everything was trending towards Trump. The betting houses, everything we could see.
The world markets, everything.
Everything was, and then you had the big pause, and then at 4:30 a.m., they took that 4 or 5 hour break, and then at 4:30 a.m., I guess they went back to work and started counting. And then, every vote was for Biden. I mean, we know all of that. That's not anecdotal. That really happened. Everybody knows it happened. They're not even disputing that happened. They're just saying, well, that's when they started counting the mail-in ballots. And the mail-in ballots, of course, were quite naturally 98% for Biden. But this again, if Trump believes all of this and has the proof and the evidence, and he voluntarily leaves, frankly, the hell with him. If he really knows that this thing was rigged and he still leaves the White House, what else can you do? But if he does have all of this, he cannot allow criminally corrupt media, a criminally corrupt court system, blow him out. I mean, he's got to fight. I mean, if you're the president of the United States, and I don't say this glibly, I mean, this isn't, the next door neighbor, your buddy who's a mechanic. But if you're the president of the United States, if you're the head of state of any country, and there's been a coup like that, as he says, you have to do whatever it takes to clean the house, even if that involves calling up the military. I mean, that's what you have to do if what he is alleging is true. And if he does it, if it's not true and he leaves, then I guess we'll know that some of his detractors were right, and this was, maybe a grift. But I don't even call it a grift, really. I don't want to contradict myself. There's nothing wrong with raising money for a future endeavor. People can read the fine print. People aren't stupid. You can read that not all of this goes to paying his lawyers. But the point still remains. If he does have this evidence, he cannot leave.
That's a great point that you're making. Let me quickly say also for YouTube purposes that we're not speaking for YouTube today, and these are all opinions that we are sharing, and some of those opinions are retrieved or gleaned from elsewhere, and so you have to make sure that you get a full picture by going other places like CNN and Snopes to get a rounded view of everything that's taking place during this election. And of course, everything that the Republicans have been saying in the Trump campaign is contradicted by everything the Democrats are saying. So if you want that information, then all you got to do is go to the aforementioned platforms, as well as everything else in the establishment media. You'll get your answers there about what the Democrat Party says vis-a-vis the election and whether or not there was election fraud. But something that your point you're raising, one thing I'll tack on very quickly, is that even if the system, however it plays out, the challenges in court and whether or not you have Republican legislatures that pick the slate of electors in contravention to the popular vote in the state because of perceived fraud, voting fraud throughout the state, or the governors select as well, and then the federal government makes the decision to go to the delegate system instead, the Supreme Court will have the final say, and they can actually, as I understand, overturn what the states have done, and they can say, no, these votes will be given to thus and such, this from this state or what have you. And of course, Trump moved some of the judges around, some of the justices around to be able to make those decisions based on their previous work relative to cases that have been similar in the past. And so that was thinking ahead, sort of the chess that I don't know about the underwater 18 dimension chess that people claim to be able to make, but that is nonetheless a move for the future of the battle over whether or not there was fraud in this election. But you're making a great point, James, and I want to ask you a question that combines that really, it's two questions, combines this point that you're making that I hadn't thought about before, and that is that if Trump is certain that there was fraud, whether just subjectively in his mind, whether he was certain there was fraud, and this is irrespective of whether or not there was actual fraud, if he leaves office certain that there was fraud in his mind, then that is a cowardice and a treason, and it's hard to imagine that somebody could walk away from 70 whatever million voters and the rest of the country and duty to the Constitution. So, what both scenarios in your mind, if you could just, for both questions are going to the questions are for both sides of the scenario. Trump walking away, the courts finding against him, but him believing and saying it was still a fraud and walking away. How do things over the next few months, let's say the next month to 6 months, play out in this country versus Trump coming away with the presidency by any of the possibilities that we've mentioned and maybe some others we haven't? How does the country look 1 month to 6 months? Trump not in office, Trump in office, and the case where he leaves office, stating that it was fraud nonetheless.
That's a great question, Jason. And let me go back and reiterate just a couple of things. It's already been stated a time or two, but for the point of emphasis, we'll say it one more time. If the president of the United States knows it to be true that he won this election beyond any shadow of a doubt, he cannot allow himself to be removed from the White House. Now, I don't want to see military in the streets and some sort of some scenario like that, but I also don't want to live in a banana republic. And so push going to have to come to shove one way or the other on that. We're either going to be we're already criminally corrupt in so many ways. Yeah, this country is, and obviously amoral and immoral and degenerate, and there's just so much going on that's wrong about this country. And Trump won't fix that, by the way. Mm-hmm. But we're not talking about a cure-all. We're talking about Trump or Biden. Who would we rather see? And obviously the answer is Trump. So he can't go if that's the case. If it is in fact the case that he's been, using all of this to raise money, then he'll continue to protest from outside the White House, and he'll go on and do whatever he's going to do next. But I think that'll be the time when his cards are put on the table. If he leaves, I think in my mind it will be because he never did really believe it, or if he did believe it, he didn't have the proof. I think it all comes down to whether he leaves or if he doesn't. And he hasn't necessarily said, well, I think he did say one time he would leave if the Electoral College did this or that, and then he kind of backpedaled it. But again, it's delicious what he's doing with just keeping all of this kind of up in the air. I love the fact that it erodes trust, at least amongst his base, in the American system. And, I'm sure that it is generating some consternation with Biden and his team, which of course is good too. I applaud everything, frankly, the president has done so far. He just hasn't done enough if what he is telling us is in fact true. Now, if somehow, some way, to answer your question, Trump is able to remain in office, and I don't know if it's something that the Supreme Court can help him with, what a case before the Supreme Court would actually look like, because he's got so many different cases in so many different states. This isn't, a situation like it was with Bush and Gore, where it was just one county, 500 votes, one state, one county, 500 votes. Totally different when you're talking about multiple states, multiple grievances, and a lot of different allegations. How that would look if it got to the Supreme Court, and if a case that got before the Supreme Court would be the one that, if they decide one way, it's Trump. If they decide the other way, it's Biden. But it doesn't hurt the fact that Trump has put 3 or 4. I mean, how many has he put in there now? You got Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Barrett. Am I missing anybody? Is that it? So, but that's enough to turn it. And obviously, had Barrett not been on there, the case in New York limiting people from going to church would not have been decided the way that it was. And so the Supreme Court was able to overturn Cuomo's order up there. That wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for Trump's picks. Now, if Trump is able to stay, it's just, I think you're going to see massive rioting and unfortunately, probably bloodshed. And this is, of course, the violence will be coming almost exclusively. Well, you know it's going to be coming in exclusively from the left. And how do we know that? Where have the riots been since November? You know, everybody was boarding up. Everybody was getting ready in case they allowed Trump to win. And nothing happened. 70 million plus Trump voters have been upset, and there hasn't been one riot. You know, and that's been
behaving relatively well.
Yeah, I mean, our people don't do that, and so we know that the left is pacified right now, so they haven't been out in the streets. The moment they become aggrieved again, they will go out there, and if it's something this big, where they think they got him, and he finds a way to persevere, I think. You know, what we saw at the height of the Black Lives Matter and Antifa terrorism this summer, that's really been going on all year, is going to kick back up to unforeseen levels. That's what's going to happen if Trump pulls this out. If Biden, of course, pulls this out, which I guess you have to say, not that we want it to be, but it is probably the more likely of the two scenarios right now, just because of all of the different institutional levers that Trump is up again. If Biden, though, is confirmed, and if Trump leaves the White House and Biden occupies it, obviously that's going to be a big return to business as usual for the duopoly. We mentioned this a moment ago. The Republicans are going to, of course, revert back to form, and the Democrats will do as much damage as they can. Biden will ultimately probably be a pretty ineffectual president. I don't see him really getting a lot done if the Republicans can ensure gridlock by taking the Senate. But some of the things that he'll try to do, of course, is going to be a substantial increase in immigration, both legal and illegal, amnesty and family reunification for illegal aliens, bemused tolerance of illegal immigration. You'll see a government violation of civil liberties in an effort to suppress dissident speech. This is something that I think is really going to pick up under Biden. FBI harassment of whites who oppose the system of agenda. This is actually a question I was asked by a European magazine just a few days ago that's going to be out in newsstands in Europe later this month. They asked me about what I foresee if Biden is installed. Corruption, as seen in the history of the influence peddling by Hunter Biden, see a return of that, higher taxes on small businessmen and professionals, more transfers of wealth from white Americans to other groups, possibly a renewed vigor for reparations to blacks whose ancestors were, of course, slaves 6 generations ago, foreign policy reversal of Trump's efforts to withdraw from failed interference in the Middle East, revival of the civil war in Syria with American support, confrontation and provocation with Russia. I mean, they'll do all of that. That's the stuff that they will do. What they would like to do, which they may not be able to do, because I think they were expecting a clean sweep, increasing their gains, increasing their hold on the House and in the Senate as well. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. But if it is, and if they are able to get all 3 branches of government, they want to have the Supreme Court. But this is obviously very weak Republican hold on, or weak conservative, whatever you want to call it. The Supreme Court, we can't rely on them. In fact, we shouldn't. They shouldn't have any power anyway. I'm an Andrew Jackson type of guy when it comes to the power of the Supreme Court. They've made their ruling, let them enforce it. That's the stuff we need from presidents. The Supreme Court rules it. If it's illegal, if it's unconstitutional, I mean, to hell with them. But unfortunately, this is all we're left with. The hope that these relatively moderate conservatives that Trump has stocked in the Supreme Court will do something good. But even they won't be able to necessarily stop adding Puerto Rico and D.C. and all of that as states, guaranteeing permanent Democratic control of the Senate You'll see more hate crimes legislation. It'll be bad. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be bad. And that's why I don't understand some of our brothers who are, celebrating the fact that Trump lost just because he was a disappointment to us in many ways. This whole thing where, we're so mad at Trump. Well, we just wanted to get worse in order to spite him. That's a true cut off your nose to spite your face type of thing. I love some of these guys, but I don't understand the glee and the mocking of Trump's, apparent defeat. Just so we can get Biden. So that's what's going to happen if Biden gets in.
Well, let me ask also, and I agree with you completely. Also, man after my own heart, ladies and gentlemen, he's Andrew Jackson fan. Absolutely, 100% endorse. That's what we need. We need an Andrew Jackson right now in the White House. But Trump was on the air on Fox with, I think, his first interview. He called in on this past Sunday, I believe it was. And it was that Marie something or other show, and
that was actually his first
said sort of
his first one-on-one interview, I think, in a month, since the election.
Yes, precisely. And he said briefly there. At first, it's sort of a throwaway comment, almost glibly stated, but then he revisited it briefly, and it really struck me, even when he just first said it, almost as a throwaway comment, that he shrugged off the FBI. She was asking, where's the FBI and all this? Why aren't they filing charges? Why aren't they arresting people? Why weren't they? And in questions we have asked, why weren't there video cameras set up? Surely they would have been aware of something taking place, something being planned. And then he said, well, maybe the FBI and DOJ are in on it. And one of her eyebrows went way up. And then a little bit later, he said it again. So I want to ask you, if by whatever means Trump ends up in office again, what do you foresee, if anything, that he does about these agencies that are undermining him and have been undermining him? Now, we know what Andrew Jackson would do, but what might Trump do? Or do you expect?
Well, what can he do? I mean, unless he has the loyalty of the military, which any commander-in-chief should be able to expect, I don't know what you do with rogue agents in these different agencies. And to that point, Jason, I mean, we know beyond any shadow of a doubt that the American government and these agencies that you speak of, that you mentioned, we know that they have engaged in regime changes just like this all over the world, countless examples going back for as long as any of us can remember. So if you're going to do that in other countries, you don't think they would have a hand in doing it in America, where you would have a much better chance of getting away with it and it not being a big deal, and you got the media to run cover for you? I mean, if we're going to pick and choose the presidents and the leaders of other countries around the world, but we're not going to do it here. We're going to have a safe, clean, fair, free, transparent election in the United States when we're engaged in this sort of behavior in other parts of the world for decades upon decades. So, and again, if they truly believed, as they said, that Trump is this existential threat, he's this evil orange Hitler, he's got to be removed by any means necessary, but they wouldn't dare cheat. They wouldn't dare cheat to stuff a few ballots in states where the elections is very close. When you're talking about less than 100,000 votes in states where millions of votes were cast, I mean, that's not that many. That's doable. And then, of course, you could have the situation. I mean, it still remains to be seen. We have to see the evidence. We have to see this presented. But just the fact that the courts are blocking these things, that doesn't mean anything to me, because I know how corrupt the courts are. To repeat myself again, the courts are criminally corrupt. Just because a corrupt judge says something doesn't make it so. But if Trump has the goods, he has to press his luck. He has to go, and he has to go hard, and he has to go all the way. I was disappointed to see him allow the General Services Administration to grease the skids for the transition a few days ago, after they had held out pretty mightily for nearly a month. So it's classic Trump in that regard. He says some things, and maybe a little misdirection, and then over here, there's something that'll happen that sort of contradicts what he's saying. And in this case, it's the GSA going along and allowing Biden access to these funds that would enable him to speed up his transition and, get some briefings and get some other things that a duly elected, candidate would receive. But, all I can say is, guys, I mean, we can speculate, we can wonder. I guess we'll find out in a little over a month. I mean, we're not going to have to wait too long to see how this is going to play out. But to his credit, he has still not said the words "I concede," and however long he can keep that up, there is some value in that, I think. We want his base to be disgruntled. I mean, we don't want his base to go back. And I voted for him. I don't necessarily count myself as his base. I think we're a little bit beyond Trump in many ways. And we understand that no single election is going to turn this around for our people and all of the problems that we face. But his base needs to lose the faith, and his base needs to be mad. And they don't need to go back to being compliant little Republicans, no matter how this goes.
Beyond based. Jason, maybe that could be an alternate name for our show. This is a little speculative, but in terms of the game theory, the kind of things, as you were saying, that Biden's doing with this office of the president-elect is all of it is drumming it up so that just in case Trump pulls it off and is sworn in on January 20th, that they're fanning the flames of chaos, because they want the general population and certainly all the people that voted that way to think that Trump is stealing it. And as you said, it's going to add gasoline to the already very violent and turbulent kinds of riots that we saw earlier in 2020. Do you think that, and Jason, I don't know if you've spoken to this on any other streams as well, that there's a chance for chaos and violence either way, that even if Biden gets in, that their pets are going to come back to bite them, that so many of the left are more extreme. And if Biden kind of goes back to business as usual a little bit at first, and I'm sure that there are nefarious things that are going on behind the scenes. Jason's spoken to the bills and all kinds of things that they're going to try to pass through. But in day-to-day affairs, if it doesn't seem as extreme, as anti-white, progressive, and nutty as the Antifa types want, that they would still feel like they're owed something? Or do you think that even though we know that some of the more extreme elements are going to do that, that now that they've served their purpose, that all of a sudden they will be put in jail or the police will come down on them, whereas, the leash was very, very long and loose in 2020? What do you think of that? Do you think that there's any chance of, if they don't see something extreme, or do you think there could be extremities? Do you think Kamala is going to have a big hand in this? Because as I said, Jason's kind of pointed out that there are some really dire things that they have lined up should they get away with this.
I think that most of the riots that we saw were just the attack dogs being let loose. I don't think that these were spontaneous things. And they certainly could have been stopped very easily and very quickly with just a modicum of law enforcement actually enforcing the laws. I think the reason that they haven't come out in the last month, all of a sudden they were satiated? All of a sudden their grievances were met just because Joe Biden's in there? I mean, Joe Biden.
Exactly.
He's a sociopathic, believe in nothing, unprincipled politician. If espousing so-called white nationalist talking points was the path Joe Biden needed to get to the presidency, if all of the media was echoing pro-white talking points, then Joe Biden would be a white nationalist. I mean, he doesn't have any real beliefs. It's just whatever he needs to further his career. And that's how, 95% of everybody is. Politicians, man on the street, whatever. I say this all the time. There are very few people on either side of the political spectrum that have inflexible beliefs that they will fight for and that they will adhere to no matter what amount of pressure is applied. Obviously, you've got three such men here on this stream right now, but most everybody else is just going to go along with the flow, whatever's trendy, whatever's fashionable, whatever's in vogue. So, I mean, Biden believes in nothing, and he's not going to do anything for all of these people who were rioting. He really isn't. I mean, everything that they were rioting for, the right for criminals to never have an accident with police. I mean, it was just so nonsensical. Everything that they claimed to be, it was just such a disjointed message. I really honestly still don't know what they were truly out there for, other than just deep-seated hatred of whites and of America. And honestly, you know what it was, guys? It was fun. That was entertaining to go out there and set stuff on fire and loot stores. I mean, they were just having a good time. They how did that give them any solace over the passing of dear George Floyd to go out and rob the big lots? I mean, they were just getting their kicks. That's what all that was about. But they haven't done it at all in the last month. Now, why? Nothing has fundamentally changed for them with Biden. Nothing has happened that they could say, yes, we got this now. That'll never happen again. Our mission has been won. We can abandon the field. They just haven't been told to go out and do it. I think that, and there is a hidden hand that guides a lot of these things, and they go out when they are supposed to. Now, obviously, not everybody is in on this. I mean, they see some key organizers going out and getting this ginned up, and then they come and join the party. But yeah, I don't think, though, if Biden wins, that these people continue to riot in the way that we've seen. I don't foresee that. If that was going to be the case, they'd still be doing it. Why did they stop? And I can guarantee you they would have been doing it if Trump had won, or if Trump had, you know what I mean. Maybe he did win, but if he declared the winner, I think they would have been out from the night of the election still to this very day.
I'm going to throw a question to you, and then I'm going to make a quick statement. So hold on to it. If Trump wins up in office, we're just speculating here, whether that would be fair or unfair, legitimate or illegitimate, whatever it might be. What does Trump do? What do you foresee Trump doing when anticipated rioting begins? So just hold on to that for a moment. I do want to say really quickly, ladies and gentlemen, that if you have questions, you have financial gifts, now's the time to do it. We're getting closer to the end of the programs. Make sure you tag me as No White Guilt on that channel, as Discipline with NWG on that channel. I can open up Entropy, or not Entropy, but on Entropy you can, of course, ask questions in the question widget and financially gifting there. You can ask questions with your financial gifts, but I can also open up D Live for those who want to ask a question there with diamond points or higher, and I'll do that in just a moment. But I do want to point out that this prescient and insightful commentary that James Edwards is giving you right now, you can have it every single week by tuning into his program. He and Keith, his co-host, they dig in every single week to all of these finer details. They get into the nitty-gritty of what's taking place across the United States, vis-a-vis everything that you're learning about tonight, and a great many more things. A great wide panoply of subjects are covered on their program. It's on Saturdays. And you'll be able to find it's at thepoliticalcesspool.org is the website. You'll be able to find it there. So make sure you bookmark it now, and then you listen in. You'll be able to listen in on your phone. You can listen in on your handheld devices of various types, on your desktop as well. And if you are in one of the areas where it is broadcast, you can listen to it right on your radio, which is one of the coolest things ever to be able to do. I do want to throw out to you, before you go to the question about what does Trump do or potentially do if and when the riots are initiated, if and when he ends up back in office or remains in office, I just want to submit to you that even though the rioting, even though these attack squads, these anti-white hit squads that burn down Western civilization, and not only go to the places like Big Lots to fleece those businesses, driving up the costs for us. I mean, so many white people, they shrug their shoulders at that kind of thing happening. Well, the price goes up for us because the insurance goes up for Big Lots, and then they have to make the money back somewhere. So remember that when these people are thieving from these places. But they also go after halls of records and destroying these places, setting these things on fire, destroying statues and everything else, erasing us from civilization. But I just wanted to submit to you, James, that this may or may not be true, that these claims that so many people have been making to me from across the federal government, contacts that I have, that they have been subjected to hellish, beyond mafia level threats and intimidation, all the way up to people hacking into their home security system, going into their homes, turning off their home security system, going into their homes when they're not home, taking articles of clothing, and then mailing them back, or leaving their articles of clothing in envelopes with horrific messages. Everyone who is the individuals, this is all, this is just their claims, not truth. Or we're not saying it's true or not. You have to look to CNN for that. But that they're coming with threads. They're coming with threats about murdering and raping on to death and everything, family members, and murdering. And also when it comes to Sidney Powell and her involvement, and as well and then her being seemingly pushed out of some of these lawsuits, or pushed out of the orbit of Donald Trump, threats to her and her clients, as well as the GSA, the woman in charge of the GSA, threats to her specific that apparently have continued after even releasing the money, the funds. All claims made by these people. I'm sure it's all lies. But even though on the bigger scale, we're not seeing the buildings on fire and the statues coming down, there is this claimed this threat, this sort of the heat still on, from the anti-whites to those who in any way, shape, or form are interfering with the anti-whites fulfilling their objective here with the White House, and therefore being able to inflict that injury that they would like to inflict on Western kind and Western civilization. Now, these are going to be the same people that are leaving threats that we will keep you just barely alive while we rape you on to death, so you feel all the pain and you know what's happening to you all the way up until you die. Those same individuals are going to be the ones who are going to be out in the streets. I think we all can predict, if Trump remains in office. How do you see, just to circle back to that question now, how do you see Trump handling the rioting, the destruction of Western civilization, should he remain in the office?
The threats are real. I mean, we can point to, I think, just one example. And you're dealing with animals. I mean, these people are animals. It's wanton destruction. It's godless. It's really the worst of humanity. That's what we've seen. Those have been the shock troops for the left, and they've been out in the streets all year. And what we've seen is, I'm sure, just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what they have in store, or what some of these threats may entail. I think you had the situation up in Wayne County, Detroit, Michigan, where you had the election workers who at first were not going to certify the vote count in Detroit, and then they were met with death threats for them and their children, if I'm understanding the information that I've read. And then they reverted, and then they were going to do it, and then they came back and they weren't going to do it. So yeah, I mean, all of these people, anybody that has a hand, no matter how small, is certainly feeling the pressure from these forces of evil, frankly, that have been unleashed. And again, a lot of this has to be put on the plate of Donald Trump. I mean, he is the president. I know if there was a school that needed integrating, you could send in the National Guard. They did that back in the 60s, so we know that it can be done. I mean, they should have sent in the troops and cleaned up the rabble. Not because we disagree with them politically or they disagree with us, but because they are destroying American cities all year long. Churches, beautiful buildings, beautiful architectural structures, all the way down to Targets and Walmarts and everything else. That should have been stopped immediately. The fact that Trump didn't do it, of course, only encouraged more such behavior. And now such behavior is being visited on election workers and people who would like to stand up and speak out. And even some prominent attorneys, by the way, have had to back out of pursuing some casework for Donald Trump because of the threats and the pressure. Unfortunately, if Trump is able to somehow see this thing through and stay, I can't say with any confidence that he is going to rule with an iron fist and go out and seek a righteous vengeance, keyword righteous vengeance, a well-deserved reckoning. I don't think he would do that. So many times it's true the cliche past his prologue, what we've seen from him as president is he says a lot of things that are right on the money, but he just doesn't follow it up with action, or he's stymied, or it gets lost in the shuffle of everything else he's dealing with, and it just dies on the floor. I think one such example, there was an article on Kevin McDonald's website, the Occidental Observer. I believe it was written by a gentleman named Hubert Collins. It was written back about a week after the election. And he talked about how Trump was talking about widespread election fraud in 2016. And instead of appointing somebody like Chris Kobach, who could have gone in there and really done honest work to try to figure out exactly what was going on, it got shuffled over to the Department of Homeland Security, and then it just died in the labyrinth there. Nothing ever happened. And it didn't even get revived until earlier this year, when the threats of election fraud once again became imminent. But for 4 years, it wasn't dealt with. And now here we are. So if Trump was able to get back in there, I mean, you have to, the best way to predict future behavior is to look at past behavior. And I think he would, after, you know, a period of rioting and God knows what the left may do, Trump would just settle back into doing what he had done the last 4 years. I just don't see that reckoning coming. I would love to be wrong about that. It's going to be hard to be wrong about that, because he's really going to have to find a way, historically unprecedented way to stay in office at this point. But, you know, obviously, the rot is very deep. I mean, you're not just talking about moving a few people around. You're talking about institutional corruption that permeates to the very baseboards, and it's in all aspects of government. I just don't know how one man, no matter how much he wants to clean it up, how far he could get in such a short period of time. You're talking about rot that's been festering for decades, and he would have, if he was even hell bent on doing it, you know, a couple of years. But he didn't do it the last 4 years. So again, I don't see that happening. You know, all the news about the recounts, we haven't talked about the recounts. Just a quick word on that. We've talked about a lot of the other aspects about what's been in play. The controlled media saying recount upholds Biden victory in Georgia and Wisconsin. Well, you know, no shit. You're recounting the same votes that you were counting before. Well, we don't doubt that those votes are there. We doubt that they are legitimate, you know, mail-in ballots, or perhaps even computerized shifts or whatever. We understand that you reached a number somehow, some way, and going back and counting the exact same votes is going to give you very nearly the exact same number. So the recounts, you know, if you're counting the same votes, that doesn't impress me that you got the same result. The question has always been, are these votes legitimate? Are these votes legal? So, guys, I don't know. It's going to be another interesting month. It's been an interesting month so far. I'm hoping for something good, but I'll tell you what we're doing. What we're doing over at the Political Cesspool, and it started really 2 weeks ago. We jumped the gun a little early. I said we were going to be doing this during the month of December, but we started a little early. It is the season of hope and of goodwill and of community and of giving and all of these good things that you have at Christmas time. We are throttling down just a little bit just for the Christmas season. If I knew that there was a way we could deliver this thing for Trump by just giving you the hardcore power politics, smash mouth political commentary over the course of the next 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, then we would certainly do it. But short of that, and I have it on good authority that no matter what we talk about over the next 4 weeks, we alone are not going to change the trajectory of this thing. So what we're doing is we're letting people sort of decompress, relax just a little bit, still talking about the news, still covering the headlines in every given show. But we are focusing real people who are doing real things. And I think it is very important that you remember that there are good people out there, not just people like you and Jared, Jason, who are obviously very public figures and leading this thing and are some of the most prominent spokesmen. Not our regular usual suspects of guests who are so fantastic and are all brothers of mine, who are always welcome and will continue to come on so long as we have a voice. But I'm talking about people who aren't involved in any sort of organization and don't head their own media entity. These are the people we've been focusing on the last couple of weeks, and we had a fantastic show week before last where I had this event that I spoke at in South Carolina. A lot of people there who are engaging in their own, Bible studies, their own trades. They've got a blacksmith, they've got a leather tanner. They're teaching people how to do actual things. They're growing food. We had Sarah Dye, who I know was just on with y'all. Sarah was on with us last week. And of course, the story of that inspirational family fighting back against injustice and how they make a living on that micro farm of 3 acres in the farmer's market. And there are fantastic people out there. And we are bringing you their stories over the course of the next month. We'll get back to the battle. Every soldier needs a furlough. Everybody needs to take a mental break from all of this. It's very important. We got to keep our fingers on the pulse, but rather than doing 3 hours every Saturday night, we are spending a lot of that time, at least for the next 4 weeks, just a short period, showcasing people who are setting an example for others to follow in their daily lives. Not everybody can have a show like yours. Not everybody can do the things we've done and that other of our colleagues are doing, but everybody can learn ways to be more independent and more self-reliant and less reliant on the system. And so those are the people we are bringing on. Had a big interview, I mentioned it a moment ago, with a European newspaper that's going to be out in newsstands, actual, I guess the equivalent of a brick and mortar building. This is the actual publication that you can hold in your hands, which is a novelty in this day and age. After 10 years,
you know the name, or able to share the name of that magazine?
I can. I want it to be published first, though. So, okay. But I tell you, they gave.
Well, follow James on Twitter, and then we'll celebrate. And
we'll put it out there. And it's. I've seen this magazine. I've seen what it looks like. It's a high quality publication. And again, in addition to their subscriber base and their website, they are actually sold in newsstands. And it was a good experience. There was actually a French language journal. This is the 10-year anniversary of the release of my book, and we actually just got another review from a French language journal that we're going to post just in the next couple of days. It just came out. So I always like these European interviews. They're novelties. I don't like to do a lot of American media, and I'm sure you know why. We've done it all. We've been covered by it all. But the European things are fun because if it's a HACCP job, and so often they are, there's not a lot of blowback over here. And if it is a generally good interview, well, you can always reach people in the mother country, the mother continent. They need good content too. Absolutely. But these two gentlemen
and James, let me just say before Jason gives us some of the super chats and questions, this is why I love you. I know Jason does too. What you were just saying before, that's such a great angle for your show, The Political Cesspool, to take this month in December. We always look for ways people can be positive and take agency, and the ethos of we're all in this together. I love what you're doing. It's perfectly in the spirit of Christmas, and it's absolutely what people need right now. You're absolutely right. There's only so much we can do. So why not focus on the positive and how people have agency and show these great role models and examples? Good on you for that, man. That's a beautiful thing.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, the spirit moved me. I have always kind of guided my show based upon gut feeling. And again, we could continue to just give you the news and the commentary and our opinion and analysis on all the headlines that build up every given week between show to show. But this just really felt like the way we needed to go right now, because there's so much blackpilling going on out there, and people need to be reminded that our people are eternal, our people are good, our people are out there. There are wholesome people still out there. There are still communities out there that are very organic, that are building, that are growing, that are doing good things, and you just got to find them. And if you wait for your CNN or you'll never know that these people even exist anymore. But they do, and they're happy, and they're growing, and they're having children, and they're having families, and they're trying to do it the right way. So thank you, Jared, for saying that. I really appreciate that. Yeah. And we are, of course, anchoring that with Christmas music, which just has its own way of.
James, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a sucker for Christmas. I can't help but get in the Christmas spirit no matter what's happening. So I'm a big Christmas guy. I appreciate that too.
Well, the Christmas markets are shut down this year in Europe, and I don't know if there is a manifestation of European expression more iconic than a European Christmas market. I mean, there's just something about winter, I think, that's very European.
Yeah, I shared an image of a European Christmas market yesterday on December 1st.
Yeah, you sure did.
Now that it's December, it's like I'm totally in it. I had the Christmas music on. You have to still enjoy life, guys, however you can. You're dictated by the media.
We can't live on the front lines. We got to serve on the front lines. We got to do our duty. But you can't eat, breathe, sleep, and live the battle all the time. You have to have some balance and family and do these activities and focus on these things that remind us why we're fighting for in the first place. And I think that's what our month of programming is going to be. Whatever's going to happen will still be. I promise everyone the battle will still be going on in January when we get back to regular programming. And again, it's not that we're completely abandoning talk about current events. But we're just having a healthy dose of this other stuff too, and I tell you, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, what a brilliant idea! I underscore what Mr. George said. Let's jump to these so we can get you back to your family. We have a $3 financial gift from Slots, and he writes here, "Hail James." Well, thank you so much, Slots. This is over on Cash App. Big champion, and we have a few financial gifts over here and a few questions that we're going to knock out quickly, ladies and gentlemen, so we can send James back to his wonderful lovely wife and wonderful children. We have the great Tall Kevin financially gifting $5. Thank you, brother. And he writes here, today in 1859 in Charlestown, Virginia, militant abolitionist John Brown is hanged on charges of treason, murder, and insurrection when he was captured by Robert E. Lee and Jeb Stuart. Today, however, how do we live knowing there are people out there who hate us? Well, that's a good question. James, would you like to briefly address that?
I guess well, I would. I was going to make a glib remark. Don't go out and try this at home. But I was going to say we saw how Robert E. Lee handled the people who hated him. No, Robert E. Lee was really almost a Christ-like figure, as far as American history goes. And he certainly set an example of doing duty. I mean, obviously, there were things he could do as a soldier that I wouldn't recommend any of our people do for obvious reasons. But there's always going to be evil in the world. There's always going to be people who hate us. I think the key is just rising above it all and not getting engaged in the turbulence of it. We know that it exists. We know that it's out there. I mean, we're subjected to it by the media, by threats that we receive, via email, letters, all the stuff we were talking about that other people are receiving. We certainly get it too, but it's never really bothered me that much. I've never really engaged in the static and in the chatter of the detractors. You keep your eye on the prize. You know what you're fighting for. You know what you stand for, and what we're trying to do is good. Number one, it's also natural and healthy to defend for and advocate for one's family. So any detractors, I mean, they've never once made me second guess my positions or my life's work, and they've certainly never made me wish I hadn't done it. And so we'll continue on. And I guess the answer would be just completely disregard. Just completely disregard. It's never bothered me one bit.
There you have it, folks. We're going to keep rolling really quickly here. Mrs. Jess Horst, the wonderful lady, $15 financial gift. Thank you, sweet woman. Unable to watch live, but we'll catch it in the replay. However, I still wanted to support and contribute a little. And then she says, Kip, for Keep It Promethean. Well, thank you so much, sweet woman. Moving right along, we're at Casual Cruising. Hello, dear brother, with $3. Thank you so very much. James is the kind of guy one would like to have a beer with. I've done it, Casual Cruising, so I can promise. It is, you're right about that. And he further writes, and I just bought yet another 2 copies of Go Free. Both are to be sent to sympathetic libertarians. Well, thank you so very much for that. If you're doing all you can, what a testimonial that is too, as well, knowing that it works. And that's why you're sending it out to folks. Big Promethean hails to you. Casual Cruising. In fact, I could tell you some stories about this James Edwards and some fun that we had back in the days. We'll save it for another show. Not a Piano Key is with us, financially gifting $10. Thank you so much, brother. Just got my copy of Folk in the mail yesterday. Absolutely amazing. I love your contribution, Jason and Jared. So glad I am part of this movement. God bless
Thank you
both and your work. Well, thank you so much. Not a piano key.
If James isn't aware, that's a coffee table book that was recently put together. A nice work of art in our spheres. We'll tell you a little more about that. In fact, we'll talk off there. I'll be able to get you a copy, probably, James. So we'll talk off
I have a coffee table now. I just need a book.
Yes.
I said I have a coffee table now. It just needs a book on it.
That's it.
Well, I can help you out with that, James. Consider it my Christmas gift to you and your family. Then.
Well, thank you very much. And speaking of Christmas, I don't know if I made mention of the fact earlier that we just sent out Christmas cards yesterday and today. It was a 2-day project. And Jason, you've got one coming your way.
Oh.
If you've got a regular snail mail address, I'd love to put you on the list. I don't know if anyone knows Dissident Mama. She does good work over at dissidentmama.net. I was talking with her yesterday about an unrelated topic and made mention of the fact that I was putting a card in the mail for her. And she said she was so glad she made the Christmas card list. It is a very prestigious list indeed. Christmas card list. But no, anybody that wants one. But I want to send one to you. Thank you for the offer of the gift. And Jason, yes, some stories we should share. Some stories we can't share with regards to the late night. But were you there the night of the hotel in Baltimore when I liberated a few beers? From
Yes, I was there.
I remember doing it. I don't remember exactly everyone who was there, but
hell of a lot of fun. We'll have a night of stories, the ones we can share at some point in the future. But before then, we'll have to finish here. Evidence violates terms of service, financially gifting $30. Thank you so much, brother. And he writes here, got a little unexpected windfall the other day and want to share some with you three great gents. Much respect in the fight for our people and for a better planet. Amen to that. May heaven bless and keep your baby girl and entire family, Mr. Edwards. Long live worldwide Europa. Well, thank you so much. $30 from Evidence Violates TOS, Terms of Service. A great contributor and champion for White Wellbeing. And we also have Casual Cruising just coming in again with $3 more. Thank you so much. Libertarians, two sympathetic people in charge of vast sections of books. You are half right, though. They are also former librarians. I apologize. Yes, libertarians. This is you see, James. There's a conspiracy in the production of monitors and also printers. Things have begun to get a little blurry for me. It's definitely not my site, and so it's occasionally I'm thrown by these efforts by the monitor companies. This one in particular is Dell, so I'll make sure to write them a very angry letter for blurry monitor. We have
Eat more carrots, Jason. Eat more carrots and get your 2020 back.
Right, exactly. We have Dustin over here with the top voted question. Do you all consider Southern Europeans and Slavic people as white? Yes, of course. Anyone else want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Irish are white. I mean, that whole thing. Yeah, they're white.
Yeah, they're white.
Yeah, it's come up on other shows.
So yeah, I'm afraid you're in the gang. You're not going to be able to escape any of the anti-whiteism. That means you're one of us. Blue-eyed Bear writes here. Question for James: how do you protect your children from anti-white messaging in their education and entertainment? Brilliant question.
Well, we homeschool. That's the biggest way. We homeschool, and you have to be a high investment parent. You have to watch what they're doing, and we only have one TV in the house, so that's not a big deal. We don't, my kids are also very young. We have a 10-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old son, and then a newborn. So they haven't had, they don't have any experience with the internet and things like that. But no, you have to keep a tight rein, and you have to love your kids enough to parent them. Which of course we do, and protect them from the evil that's out there. And obviously, I know not everybody has the ability to homeschool or certainly afford the exorbitant cost it takes to send a kid to a public school. But any way you can keep them from going to public schools would be advisable. And I know that's not on the card for everybody. For the people who do have to do that, I mean, certainly you can do some work after hours to sort of erase some of the programming there. But it's a tough job. It's a full-time job. And it's a never-ending job, around-the-clock job.
It's worthwhile, yeah. And Casual Cruising back with another $3. Financially Gifting says, here's another $3 US toward glasses. Get thick, round frames. And then he says, love you, man. Maybe I will do that. Thick, round frames. Set me off just right for these shows. Greek America.
What about like Malcolm X type glasses?
Oh, well, boy. Yeah, I could imagine what anti-whites would say after seeing me like that. I'm sure that would be the equivalent of blackface. Greek America says, could a South Africa happen in America if Biden becomes president? Well, we were talking about these bills, and we're doing it weekly now. And in fact, this coming Sunday, I'll just briefly say, because we're running out of time here, really can't. But we'll give James a moment to see what he wants to say to that. But we have the new act, which is the Department of Peace Building Act, and the leader of that will be called the President of Peace, and it essentially establishes a parallel government to the United States and gives power over the government of the United States should it become law. James, do you have any thoughts on the possibility of seeing some of what we have seen in South Africa under let's go ahead and stretch it out to an 8-year Biden presidency?
Anything that's happened anywhere else in the world could certainly happen here. There's no doubt about that. There's nothing magical about America's laws, even the First Amendment, that gives us blanket protection forever. I mean, the laws are only as good as the people who adhere to them. And of course, right. At a greatly increasing extent, we have become a very lawless nation with regards to picking and choosing which laws we're going to enforce based upon political correctness. Obviously, immigration being one of the key ones there. But there is nothing at all here, really, that stops us from seeing this Orwellian European style hate thought legislation. You already have the hate crimes legislation, which basically just serves as an enhancement to any crime committed by a white against a non-white. I mean, that's all it is. There's already laws on the books that are going to punish any crime that anyone may commit. What you have with hate crimes, it's just an intensifier. If a white happens to commit a crime against a non-white, those can be applied. But yeah, I mean, you can see South Africa type stuff happen here. You will see South Africa stuff happen here if we drift to a point in the population that we're outnumbered to the extent that they are. I mean, your worst nightmare can happen if our people don't maintain control and regain control.
This is not related.
Yeah.
Got a truck driver.
Precisely. Let me move on to that. I see we have Althea saying here that James's teeth are shining with extra white well-being. Thank you for the compliment for James, dear lady.
All right, say that one more time. I had a visitor.
All right. It was just that Althea in the audience said that your teeth are shining extra white with white well-being.
From time to time, people ask me if these are veneers. I am proud to say that they are my real teeth, and I have never had braces, if you can believe it.
You have to come back for a dental hygiene stream.
I'm a genetic anomaly when it comes to my teeth. I've never. I think
you have the best teeth in the scene, man.
I do too.
Well, it's going to be known for something, guys. Thank you.
That's
all right.
not
We have Joseph in the question, which adding a thought here saying Trump cannot count on the loyalty of the military or any government agency. General staff officers will countermand any orders he gives. There is no oppositional poll that will provide support to Trump. That might be true, and that's a terrible possibility. Yonash is saying, damn, Jason looks so American tonight in that shirt with the American flag in the background. Well, thank you so much for that, Yonash. And I'd like to have my flag of the Confederacy behind me as well, but we know what would happen to the channel really quickly.
I pan over to mine. I'm looking at it. It's just right off screen. Yeah, you got the farmer chic look, Jason, going on right now too.
Farmer chic.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's like the interior designing.
Right.
That's like the fad in interior design right now is farmer chic, but that's the look.
Well, maybe I'll shoot for this more often then. I don't know. I had this in the closet. I figured, why not? We have.
It suits you well. It suits you well, Jason.
It's comfortable.
It is very comfortable. In fact, actually, we have who asked this question. It looks like it didn't copy over whoever asked it. I apologize. We have for James. What is your opinion on the Obama presidency, and do you think America under Biden would be even more anti-white?
My opinion on the Obama presidency was, I guess, very little. I mean, he was, like so many before him, just a placeholder for the continued logical progression of radical egalitarianism. He was just a guy that was in office, wasn't very remarkable in any ways in anything that he did or didn't do. He just held the seat for 8 years while America continued to steadily decline. And under Biden, you will see a continued steady decline. It is the decline is beginning to accelerate a little bit more rapidly just because of where we are demographically speaking, as our numbers continue to dwindle. The acceleration of the decline hastens. But in all, these guys don't have their original ideas. There wasn't anything so wonderful about Obama that propelled him to the White House. It wasn't because he was so smart, or God knows because he had accomplished so much. He was just the guy that they chose to be the president. That's all. And the same will be the case for Biden. Although Biden, obviously a little more theater there. He's a little more popcorn worthy because you're just always just waiting to see what kind of a screw up he's going to make anytime he speaks. It's really the only novelty you get out of Biden is whatever excitement you can draw from the gaffes. But as far as I'm cynical in that regard, I don't see, it's sort of like the Pope. I don't see any of these guys as legitimate. None of these guys really do anything that's part of an original idea or scheme that they came up with. They do what their handlers instruct them to do. As I like to joke, they are only the president after all. They have their boss just like everybody else.
That's funny. It's so true. We have looks like maybe one final question, and it's from Alex. I think we'll have to reduce it to one, Alex. That's kind of a large number. Alex is asking for Americans who Mr. Edwards admires or finds inspirational, and favorite oldies music artists. So he's asking for 10 of each. Give as few or as many as you would like, brother. 10 or Americans you find inspirational or you admire, and the same for oldies music artists.
That's a question right after my own heart, at least that last part especially. The only problem I have when I start listing people is you're always going to leave people off the list that deserve to be on it. I mean, I could list 100 people that I respect and admire and people who are doing good work. I mean, are we talking about individuals of historical antiquity? Obviously, my Confederate ancestors come to mind immediately, but there's just so many. If you go back hundreds of years, I say all the time, if I could go back to one point in history, it would be when Cortez met Montezuma on that causeway in Mexico. So there's just so many people in the past. When you're talking about European heroes, I mean, I almost would like to dodge that question, because when you start getting into it, you're going to leave people off. Obviously, there's modern day heroes as well, the people that we feature on this program, Jason and Jared among them, that we can draw inspiration from. There are good people out there. Not all the heroes are dead. There are heroes that are out there and working for us right now, working every day, and they may prove to be even more important than the heroes we hold dear by the time it's all said and done, because we are facing unique challenges, the likes of which some of these people that we love so much, Nathan Bedford Forrest or Davy Crockett. I mean, as a Tennessean, these are some Tennessee guys. Andrew Jackson, obviously. Tennessee had a lot of heroes. But the modern day heroes will be remembered as well one day. As far as oldies, I am a sucker. I'm a Southerner, born and bred, always have been in the South. My people have always been in here, but I love that Philadelphia, New Jersey doo-wop sounds. My all-time favorite band is Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. For anyone who knows me well, the Four Seasons. I love a good harmony. I love harmony.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that.
And that is my all-time favorite of any genre. But there's a lot of good movies from the music from the '60s. But I love the vocal harmony groups, especially when you put as that group in particular did an almost symphonic sound behind it. When you have a lot of the orchestra, you have a horn section, you have orchestra music behind some of this bubblegum pop doo-wop stuff. It just is an instant good mood. I love vocal harmonies, and I love groups like that have a lot of instruments behind them, especially a lot of brass piano. Beyond that, I mean, obviously you've got the Beach Boys, Neil Sedaka, Johnny Rivers. We could go on and on and on and on. There's so many great.
You like big band stuff at all? Like
I didn't ever go back that far. You know, a lot of Motown. I didn't really go back as far as big band. I mean, there was some good stuff. Paul Anka, the '50s. A lot of good music in the '50s. Obviously, you know.
Christmas time right now, I pull out a lot of the Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, Dean.
I'll listen to that at Christmas music. You know, I'll listen to their Christmas standards, but I don't necessarily go back and listen to a lot of their regular work. But but back to the '60s. I was about to make a point before that parenthetical departure, but anyway, no, it was just an instant good mood. It's beautiful music. It really reflected, I think, the age, the late '50s and the early '60s. You just had that vibrancy in the music that was just filled with hope and happiness, and that was the kind of America that existed back then. And of course, not so much anymore. But
no.
That has always been my music. I was born too late as far as my musical preferences go. Born in 1980, but late '50s, early '60s music. That's my jam.
Fantastic, brother. Well, it's been an absolutely. What's that?
I said, still listen to it almost exclusively.
Well, we know we hear it on your show very often, so it's fantastic. It does lift the mood when you're listening to the show, especially.
And I'll give it due where credit where it's due as well. Motown had a great sound too. The early '60s Motown stuff, Smokey Robinson, Temptation, all that stuff was fantastic music.
Well, now that we've got you sharing all of that, we'll have you share where folks can find you and what they can look for next coming out of James Edwards. We heard a bit about that, the change up in the show a little bit, giving some folks some spotlight that normally don't receive it, and that's a wonderful thing, and really glad that you're doing it, James. But please go ahead, give those that data, and then your final thoughts.
ThePoliticalCesspool.org. That's where for the last 16 years we've been anchored on the internet. ThePoliticalCesspool.org. On Twitter still at James Edwards TPC, and I've got pinned there at the top of the Twitter handle at James Edwards TPC the meme that's been going around. I've seen a lot of different people doing it, how it started, how it's going, type of thing, and it's a picture of my wife and I on our wedding night, and then a picture that was recently taken just a couple of weeks ago of our now 3 children. So how it started, how it's going, type of thing. So
yeah,
I think it is good to show who we are. And the media is going to have its narrative about who we are and what we stand for and this, that, and the other, and it's always going to run contrary to the truth. But I think a picture is worth something. I think first impressions are worth something. I do everything I can to protect my family, but I'm also very proud of my family. And when you're proud of something, you like to share it with others. And you like to share it with people who are part of your community. And that, like what y'all have done here, I think, Jason, what you and Jared have built here is a prime example of how you can have a program that builds a community. And y'all have certainly done that with the vocabulary that has sprung up as a result of your work and so many other things. And Jason, you've been to some of my events, and we have done that as well in a different way, and bringing people together, making them feel part of our family. I do consider my listening audience to be part of my family. And if you're family, I'm going to share my family with you, and we'll talk about things we do, and I want people to have a relationship with me to the extent that it's possible. And of course, it's not always possible IRL, but it is important that we have these events as well. Jason, you've been to them, and I think you saw firsthand. You spoke at one and was a star at one, the most recent, in fact, just last year. And you've seen that, I think, manifested in our audience. That all flows from the head table, and y'all have got that here. And not many people can do that. There are a lot of people out there that do fantastic work, phenomenal work far greater than what I'm able to muster. But that is one thing that I think is unique about my work, and is also unique about yours, is that there is a community there, and a sense of solidarity that the audience has with certain personalities, and you build that rapport, and you build that community of being very open and very real. I mean, we can't show everything. I mean, I don't take the microphone, to the kitchen table or anything like that, but we let people know who we are.
Yeah,
they need to know who you are.
No webcam at the Edwards dinner anytime soon.
No, and it's waiting for me too, by the way. So we
can't keep you.
I can tell you, we could actually do something about that tonight. It's waiting right now. I can take it in, and we could make history. The first live Edwards dinner.
We don't want your food to get cold, and I agree. It's good to share, but some things in the family, it's better and healthier if it's kept private, I believe. There's spaces for each.
The balance, share everything. I won't tell you what mistake my son made today or whatever. They get in trouble. But it is important that people understand that you're very real. I mean, you're more than your SPLC profile. Profile page. There's actually a real family there, and the truth and the reality is again much different than the articles people will read about you if they do a Google search of your name or your work. So it's important to combat that with the truth, and we don't hide our candle under a bushel.
Amen. Mr. George.
I'll be very brief. I don't want that dinner to get cold on you, James. I put the folk book, it came up earlier, new coffee table book. I helped organize that. Jason and I both have pieces in it where 2 of the 10 authors who were asked to write whatever they want, no direction on what it means to be a people. And White People's Press put it together, who publishes White People's Quarterly, that magazine Jason and I have also done. But Tony, the editor, has a great eye for layout. We put it together. He put together old paintings on every page. It's visually rich. It's a work of art in and of itself. It makes a terrific Yule Christmas gift. So please check out it, White People Press. The website doesn't have the S in People's, White People Press, but I did put the link, if you're listening live now, in the chats. And then speaking of links too, I'm thegreatorder.com. All of my material goes through there. It's a catalog of what I do. That site acts as an umbrella, a catch-all for what I do. But the big news is we're celebrating the week anniversary of I finally launched my music. Music's my main passion, but so far it's been the last thing now to come online in my public life. I have a music page off of that site. You can stream, download the first song. I don't have a plan right now to release albums. It's just one song at a time. I think that makes sense from where I sit in this whole internet scene. Just put out one song about once a month, give it its own graphics, its own loving packaging. Some of them I'm sure will have some videos associated as well. So I'm working already on the one for December, a little later this month. Excited about that. But this first one's gotten a great reception, and I appreciate all that. In fact, I also do a stream with John Bruce Leonard of Arctos. He's also an author. He just published his first, well, technically not his first novel, but it's a bigger launch of a novel of his. And last week I grilled him about his writing process, and tomorrow at 11 Eastern, which is 4 p.m. UK, so that's tomorrow, Thursday the 3rd, on my DLive, on my YouTube, and on thegreatorder.com itself, because just like on the afterparty.tv, on me and Jason's site, just like there, you can also watch the streams when they're live embedded right on my site, on thegreatorder.com, because we hooked up with Entropy to embed a window right there. So any of those places, if you want to watch live, I don't look forward to this because creativity, especially music, is really hard to talk about. But John's very curious about how I write songs and how this all came to be. So if you're interested in that, not to sound too solipsistic, but he's grilling me about my music and my creative process. So that's the next Learning in Public, the show we do. tomorrow at 11 Eastern for UK. Of course, sign up for our mailing list on the afterparty.tv. Regularly check our Watch Live Now page. That's the first one on the top of the menu, where Jason and I will show you the upcoming streams, the different things that we do together. Jason, I guess the next one out of our world is your Friday night music and arts listening party, right? Friday night at 7, Chuck Martell's garage party.
Yeah, kind of busy, but we keep it rolling along. But folks, it's been magnificent having you all here tonight with us. Tap is always a blast, but it's especially a blast when I have two of my favorite guys right here, James Edwards, Jared George, magnificent human beings. I want to thank everybody who was here with us tonight, everybody who commented, everybody who was a wallflower, everybody who asked questions, and certainly everybody who financially gifted over the course of the night. Love every single one of you. Want to thank Raymond for moderating over the course of the night and keeping us safe and keeping us on YouTube. And a big thank you to James. I love you. I love your wife. I love your children and your family. Magnificent people. And we'll hope to have you back here very soon, folks. And we'll see you all very soon next week. Me and Mr. George, we don't know who will be with us, but it'll be spectacular.